Hello, welcome to the Eclectic Reader. Listen to great books and stories while you use your eyes and hands for other things. Now here's your host, Madison Mason.
Hi, Madison Mason here. We're into Chapter 15 of The Gray Quarry Boys. We're going to meet some new characters. The Gray Quarry Boys, Chapter 15. Herman Kroll and Johnny Malcom. The old man stood beside the wreckage and shook his head, more in confusion than disbelief. Why in the world would anybody want to do something like this? He caught himself wondering aloud, and he squinted in the morning sun. He could see for a mile both ways up and down Snell Road. Every mailbox, clear to the horizon, was smashed. Some hung lifeless from their posts, some had their faces torn off, others were altogether missing. He looked back at his own, bent and torn as if it had been bludgeoned in a back alley. The twisted tin held the clear impression of a baseball bat. The force of the blow had sheared the crimping and splayed the face of the box. It was a sad sight. It didn't make him angry, just curious. Kids, mused Herman Kroll, and he wondered, had he been that destructive back when he was one? There was that time he and his pals had turned over Old Man Harding's outhouse one Halloween and rolled it down the hill. That couldn't have been much fun to put back together, he chuckled. Old Man Harding had it coming. He was a mean bastard. Nobody even knew his real name. He never let anyone that close. They all just called him Old Man. He'd fought the North in the war. They knew that. This was going to be a warm one. The last cicadas were already buzzing high in the sycamore trees. Felt like a wet summer coming. Oh, well, now he could make that flying duck mailbox Marlene had pointed out in that catalog. They were asking $49 for that thing, he snorted. He could make it for nothing. And she loved her ducks, especially mallards with their green heads. He'd start this morning. In town that afternoon there were no mailboxes to be had. Both the hardware store and the feed stores had sold out by lunchtime. Some farmers even suspected Bob Lucas, the owner of the hardware store, had somehow been up to it just to dump his inventory of mailboxes at $14.99 each. Wiser heads prevailed, however. Bob was an upstanding guy and president of the Elks Club. He would never think of a thing like that. I reckon we done improved the economy of this town. Mailbox sales seem to be up. Johnny Malcom laughed so hard he burped, and beer fumes ran up his nose and burned his eyes. He leaned on the window of Sun's Cafe and watched another farmer walk to his car with a shiny new silver mailbox under his arm. He swigged his bud and wiped his mouth on a leather sleeve. God damn, this place is boring. Johnny turned from the light of the window back into the bar. He took the pool cue from Slick Jonas, made a shot at the 9-ball and missed. He rose, combing his black ducktail smooth against the back of his head. Motorcycle boots clomped back to the window, and he leaned under the neon beer sign. A mother passed the cafe with her little girl. The child looked up just as Johnny's face broke into a wide grin filled with blackening teeth. She stared in fear at the savage mask leering under the sign, lit up with neon in broad daylight. The child started to whimper, and the mother dragged her away. That's right, Mommy. Better get her little britches out of here. 10 more years and that puppy's all mine. He gasped as he choked on mucus and beer. You're shot, killer. Slick watched him with dead eyes. Johnny took the cue and sprawled across the table, lining up the 8-ball with malevolence. Fucking A. Killer is right. Bob Tuttle's brows came together in the middle of his face like curtains closing to shut out his thoughts from anyone who might be interested. But very little that wasn't mechanical interested Mel Poston. Right now, the greasy mechanic had his big head shoved up behind the rear wheel of the Buick as they huddled under the overhead lift with a drop light as Mel pointed. "You see here?" Mel Poston shifted his bulk slightly around to let Bob get a little better look. He pointed to the rear axle of the Buick. "See what?" Bob squinted. "How dark all this is? This here's brake fluid. When Miss Davenport stomped on them hydraulic brakes, well, it just spewed all over like a soda pop. At any kind of speed, this big old heavy automobile didn't have no chance of stopping at the bottom of that hill." He said automobile. "So, what caused the leak? This is a brand new car. That shouldn't happen, should it?" "Oh, hell no, man. This here's a brand new 57 Buick Roadmaster Riviera hardtop sedan model 73, for Pete's sake. This mama's made to run 100,000 miles with no problems, unless somebody messes around." Mel shifted around in front of the rear tire. He took Bob Tuttle's hand and lifted it. Bob's first reaction was to pull it back, but he relented. Mel stank of grease and bad breath, and Bob sure didn't want to hold hands. Mel hung on and guided his fingers. "You feel? Up here on top of the chassis channel right here. Feel that? Somebody done filed or hacksawed this line clean through on top here by the fitting where you can't see it. Feel?" He rubbed Bob's index finger across the top of the thin metal tubing of the brake line. "The way it's cut, the car lost its brake fluid gradually, Bob. She probably wouldn't have noticed it right away, but by the time she got to the bottom of that hill, she wouldn't have had no brakes at all. Now, she was a lady, so she probably didn't know, but she could have used her transmission and emergency brake to stop the vehicle. It's got that new Dynaflow transmission, and Dynaflow transmission is an engineering miracle, Bob, I believe." Bob Tuttle feigned interest. "You think someone—" He was too late. Mel was off. "See, she could have shifted in reverse then, Bob, 'cause when that shift control lever is moved into position, what happens is oil enters the reverse servo cylinder, and it pushes that servo cylinder upwards against the outer end of the band operating lever, you know? And that causes the band operating lever to pivot, which forces that strut against one end of the reverse band. You get it? Brilliant. It's brilliant. And then the oil passing to the reverse servo applies that reverse band, you see? So what that does is pass oil to the reverse boost chamber in the pressure regulator valve body, and that increases the applied pressure to 200 pounds per square inch. You get it? Oil at 200 psi is applied directly to the reverse servo cylinder and piston in the servo body. Oil pressure is supplied by the front pump only. Those engineers at GM are genius, Bob. Genius. So the rear oil pump turns backward, and the rear pump delivery check valve is held closed to prevent the loss of oil through blowing out of this pump, you see? In other words, she could have shifted into reverse and not blew out the transmission. Ain't that great? This car would have stopped, because when that reverse servo pushed pressure against the reverse band, it just Mel, Bob cut him off. "I don't understand any of that shit, and I don't care." For a moment, Mel stared at Bob in cautious silence, as if he had encountered a dangerous lunatic. Bob sighed. Could this brake line have got punctured or busted by itself? Like, mechanical failure? That's all I want to know. Mel glanced around to make sure they were alone. "Oh, hell no, Bob. Somebody done cut that damn line."
We hope you have enjoyed this episode of The Eclectic Reader. Please go on to the next numbered episode to continue. Also, check us out on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. If you'd like to help support the project, you can donate under Madison Mason at Patreon. And please, check out our website, kltkrdr.com, for more information.
Hi, this is Madison Mason. I want to personally thank you for listening to The Eclectic Reader and invite you to share your experience, your thoughts, and your suggestions. We have many great books lined up for the future, but if you have requests for anything that is in the public domain, please email us at kltkrdr@gmail.com.
kltkrdr@gmail.com.